What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of SSPN Postgame that hasn't been different than the past 10 games, Ethan, because the Spurs are on a 10-game losing skid. But when we look at this one, here's my perspective. At least it wasn't 100-43 when the team was fully healthy. At least, it was a lot better than last time. But this was just, I don't even know how to describe this game, Ethan. Frustrating. Kind of a little bit of a dumpster on both sides. Like just with all the stuff surrounding it was a sloppy game. It felt like it started sloppy and ended sloppy. There was a little bit of good stuff in the middle. Um, we were talking before this started, and you were just like, "This is one of the most frustrating games I've ever watched." So the floor is yours. Tell me why.
I had no fun watching it. Like there was literally no point in watching it. Like it just felt like one mess up after another. Just the sloppiest, most unenjoyable basketball of the year. Honestly, but you're right. Both teams didn't play phenomenal, but at least the Raptors defensively they brought it from tip to end. Pause. Classic James Harden quote. But like they brought it the entire game. And they were longer than us. They were taller. They were stronger. They were swarming our ball handlers and really forcing a lot of mistakes offensively. And even when we finally had good shots, they were just either hitting front rim or hitting back iron every single time. Jay Rich had a tough game just finding the bottom of the basket. I thought Doug did his best to kind of keep us within like 10 points for most of that like second half or tried to. Stanley had 1 point, but like there was really not a lot of positives to go off of. I felt bad for Keldon. It felt like he was literally just by himself out there for a majority of the game.
Especially in the fourth.
Especially in the fourth. He had 22 points, 8 for 17. Obviously, he could have been better. He only shot 1 for 6 from 3, but they were really just focusing on him because the rest of the team couldn't buy a shot. Um, just continuing the frustrating trend for your Spurs fans here.
We got those sweet, sweet Isaiah Roby minutes, though, didn't we, Ethan?
Oh, we got the most beautiful playing time. Oh boy.
Oh my gosh. Well, I echo everything you just said, except I kind of had the opposite reaction to it. I just thought it was super funny. Like I was just like laughing the whole time. Like I was like, this is hilarious. And it was crazy
Oh,
too for me. I think it was funnier for me a little bit because I had the Raptors broadcast and I was
oh
texting you
no.
before, and they literally go on there and they're like, Pascal's a great piece for any team that wants him. They like went down the whole roster except for Scotty Barnes, and they were just like, everybody's available. We got a bunch of assets, guys. So, like, and at the end of the game, when Chris Boucher, he had a solid game tonight, I think
He did.
16 and 11. There was a point, I want to say it was around like, I don't know, probably late fourth quarter, but we had a chance to make it a 1 point game, cut it to 9. Jakob gets a wide open pass under the paint. I'm pretty sure he's guarded by Chris Boucher. Perfect pass from Jay Rich, slips through Jakob's hands. What does that turn into? A Chris Boucher 3 on the other end. And it was like, I just started laughing when that happened too. I was like, this is so typical. Like, but the other thing about that is like, as soon as that happens, the Toronto broadcasters are like, Chris Boucher, he's been a great Raptor. They had this dude who had like a Brooklyn accent on. I don't even know, but I guess he wasn't from Toronto. I don't know, but he definitely had a Brooklyn accent. Maybe he was from Toronto, but his accent was New York. And he was just like I said, he was like, great Raptor, but this is exactly why another team could use him. And I was just like, what is going on here? But I'll go through my game notes. Like you said, the first thing I wrote down in the fourth quarter, Ethan, was sloppy start, but back and forth because both teams were sloppy, as we were mentioning. I thought it was just a spectacle that Roby was the first off the bench, but
Ugh.
that's the predicament of the injuries right now. Like we have to play him at that backup 4 just to have a competent rotation. This is the same thing that happened when they beat us 143-100. Raptors length. That is a
Mhm.
bad matchup for the Spurs.
Oh yeah.
It causes problems in passing lanes. It causes problems when they harass us on defense and get physical because they have more length and a longer wingspan. They were able to get a lot of steals tonight. Even though it's kind of two completely different teams because that was like back at the beginning of the season, and here we are right before the deadline. We're playing them. Still, the same problems persisted. The other thing I wrote down, let me see. Roby getting worked on D, Pascal going crazy. Pascal started out 6 for 6. A couple of those buckets were on Isaiah, because they were matched up together. I said Blake, good start, and that kind of went throughout the game. The last time we got on here, I said that, the last game we saw was probably Blake's best game. This was even better. Still mistakes, turnovers, that layup at the end. Like, why are you going up against Precious Achua?
Yeah, wow.
Like he was just, but I thought about it for a second. I'm like, he's a young player. He's just trying to go score to make it a 10-point game with like a minute left. But still, that's not the decision you want to make there. But that's just rookie activities, But shout out to Blake. Don't want to get too much into that or get too off topic, but he had a pretty solid game. One of the few bright spots tonight. In the second quarter, I wrote down length once again causing turnovers, passing lanes. I wrote rough shooting night for Jay Rich. You mentioned this. It wasn't a bad game by him by any means. It was just kind of like when we talked about Malachi earlier in the year. Obviously, this is a completely different thing. But the point is, Jay Rich got good looks tonight. He just had an inevitable off night. Like I mentioned that the other night. I think it was with Keldon. It was with Malachi, actually. It wasn't with Keldon. It was Malachi. He had kind of that off shooting night the other night. Still had 15. But that was after, having 2 back-to-back 20-point games. Jay Rich has been consistent for so long. Like, I'm not going to get mad at him for missing a couple shots tonight. It just felt like the shot was off. And not to make excuses, but they are, at higher elevation. They're in Canada. I don't really think that had anything to do with it, but sometimes that can kind of just... I've heard players talk about that having an impact on them playing there. But it just felt like his shots were just off. Like you mentioned, when we did get opportunities tonight, there were a couple Doug shots late. He missed more than you'd expect, just shots that he usually doesn't miss. Another thing I wrote, passing improvement for Malachi. So that's another positive thing. And that just, I think naturally we're going to see that with him having to play the point or just that combo guard position where him and Jay Rich are taking turns, taking it up the floor. In the second quarter, I wrote KBD, subtly key to keeping us in it. I thought he had a solid game tonight, and I think that's just because he's the perfect matchup when it comes to length and all that stuff. Like physically, he's a good matchup. He's somebody who can match up with this Raptors team. But still definitely not enough to keep us in it. And then in the third quarter, that 16-6 run to start the third quarter was basically the beginning of the end for the Spurs tonight. I did write down that Roby played a little bit better in the second half, still missed some layups, but I guess I wrote that down. So he must have looked okay in the third quarter. I wrote also, actually said good things from Blake and Isaiah. But basically after that, I wrote Raptors run the whole quarter. That whole quarter was basically a Raptors run, and really more good things from Blake we saw, which is just him taking some tough layups, driving to the rim, making quick passes. It's exactly what we've been talking about, not to be super repetitive, but the more reps he gets, the better he's going to look. And that's kind of what's happening. So depending on what happens tomorrow, just for those of you guys who don't know, the trade deadline is tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. We may see more minutes for Blake and more of those reps so he can get better. And then when it comes to the fourth quarter, I wrote more of the third quarter, but Keldon is trying hard. Yeah, that's what I wrote. And to get us back in it. And the other thing was Keldon, this is a theme throughout the season. That is one positive thing we can also take away from this game. Keldon had 12 going into the third quarter. By halfway through, or the 5:50 mark, so a little bit over halfway through, he had 20. So that's very tough. Not a good night for the team. Really not a lot of positives to take away, but good to see that Keldon, even in this situation, is still finding a way to get his 20 points if he's not around that area going into the fourth. And that was the reason that we were able to have a couple chances in the fourth, was because of the tough buckets that he was making, really through contact, straight out of isolation. He was just screw it. We're not going to be able to do anything. I've got to go get 20 here for us to have a chance. And he did that. But I also wrote down bag fumbler major times 3 with opportunities to cut it to single digits. We were at 11 points. So many times we had threes, we had wide open layups, we just couldn't hit it. And the way I wrote it down was they tried so hard to mess up their lead, but we're not good enough to capitalize.
Pretty much.
That can sum up the fourth quarter.
You know what it felt like to me watching the game, actually, Jude?
What?
It felt like we were an 8th grade A team and then they were just like the bench warmers on like the varsity of a high school because they were just so much more physically like dominant than we were. But they
We
weren't.
were a 14U team playing in 16U.
Pretty much. Like, they didn't really shoot that well. I mean, Pascal had
Right.
37, but other than that, like, Boucher had a out of the ordinary good game, but the rest of the squad was just, like, big and strong, getting putbacks, getting buckets in transition. Like, it wasn't a pretty game, but they were
Hmm.
still able to beat us up, it felt like. I agree with everything that you said. Very good summary of the game. Another thing that we just haven't talked about yet, Jakob did not play well at all tonight. I Addressing Keith's comment, I don't think it will affect his trade value all that much. I know he hasn't had a great stretch the past few games, but he still managed to get his numbers, and I think it's evident of his effectiveness, especially defensively.
Hmm.
And if you're a team right now looking for a big backup or starting big, he's very able to kind of be plugged into any team looking to contend right now because of the things that he does as a playmaker, as a big, and as a defender on the interior. Obviously, he's not going to do that well on switches and the pick and roll, but that's just something you have to live with. And there's really not that many centers that are good in those situations. So I don't see it affecting his trade value going into tomorrow. And as far as Jay Rich is concerned, I don't even think Jay Rich has had a bad stretch, really. I think his trade values remained pretty much the same since the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I mean, really, this is one of his worst games of the year, and he still
Yeah,
found ways to contribute and didn't take bad shots. He just didn't shoot well tonight.
yeah, I
Also, I
agree.
can't see the comments for some reason. Like I've got like the
Oh,
comment thing here, but they're just not showing up
hmm,
on my thing. So if I don't get to some, that's why. But Ethan will do his best to check y'all out. Um, but yeah, I mean, I I agree with everything you just said. It was just a
hmm.
tough one.
Eric asked, did they send Barlow back down? Yes, they did.
Yes, they did.
Which kind of hurts because he would have been a good matchup going against the Raptors as a backup four. Because he is such a versatile, lengthy, can guard basically 3 through 5 at this point in his career. He would have been interesting to watch in this game.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. We were texting during the game too, and we were talking about Isaiah Roby. And for the little good things that he did do tonight, it just feels like Dominic Barlow's potential. Not only is he 5 years younger than Isaiah, but his potential, it just seems like way more than Isaiah. So probably going into next year, um, Dominic Barlow is going to take that spot. And it would have been interesting to see him tonight. But the reason that they sent him back down is because they're playing the G League Ignite tonight
Yes,
in
they
Austin.
need him.
No Scoot Henderson, but like I was looking, just doing a little bit more research on their roster, and there's one dude from Senegal who's 19 from the NBA like Africa Academy who was
Hmm.
playing for Senegal's main team and then just got picked up like in early October to the G League Ignite. He was having a good game at halftime. And then also Leonard Miller, who would have been a top prospect going into college, who's from Canada, who's a 6'11", 220 guy, so similar to Dom Barlow. He's having a good game tonight as well, which I know doesn't sound great for Dom, but the thing is, Dom's scoring too.
Hmm.
So while both of them aren't really playing much defense, like it feels like the reason that they're not is because the person they're matching up with against, like they're the two best players on the team and they're kind of just going at each other back and forth
Hmm.
in the post. I'll get an update from that. I have the box score pulled up right now or in one of my other tabs. I haven't looked at it, but that's what I saw at halftime for that. And then just going back to when you were talking about Jakob and Jay Rich's trade value. The other thing that I think, just to add on to what you said, I agree with what you said there, is teams know the context of who they're
Hmm.
playing with. So
For sure.
they're gonna give them a little bit, of a mulligan on that as well. And they'll probably take more like what Pop says or what the Spurs say about them.
Hmm.
Um, and what they think they could be on whatever team they send them to than a bad game in Toronto tonight. But I you know Ethan, there's no evidence for me to base this off of other than me just thinking this and speculating. But I really feel like since the trade rumors, like Jakob is just, there's been some plays where before he would give a little bit more effort on. It's not super obvious, but there's
Hmm.
just sometimes like tonight, I think there was a time where he could have closed out on either Precious or Chris Boucher for a 3-pointer and he just didn't. And I
Hmm.
understand like that was kind of a rough part of the game, but it was like we were still in it. Like that was, I want to say,
Yeah.
like that 8-minute mark of the fourth quarter. And like we just didn't see as much of that. I feel like up until recently.
Yeah.
And like I said, that could be total speculation and I could be wrong. But also with all of the trade talk that Toronto was talking about, literally they were talking about how they were thinking about potentially getting like Pirtle. And I know we've already talked about that on here, but it was weird like watching their broadcast and they're like, we're going to trade everybody and somebody we want is Jakob. Like,
Yeah.
and it was just like, this is, I don't know. Like, is this a PR stunt? Like by Masai Ujiri? Like, what is going on? Like, anyways.
Yeah, it's weird.
That was just in my mind tonight, and I know he just had this is also a bad matchup for the Spurs too. But yeah, go ahead.
I know what you're saying. It seems like there's a lot of like little detail things recently that he's been kind of struggling with. Hands getting out off pick and rolls, showing on ball handlers, and small things that ordinarily maybe he would give
I
more
felt
effort on.
like early in the season it wasn't like these weren't mishaps, I guess you could say, with those things you just mentioned, like weren't
Yeah,
happening as much.
very real possibility. But just thinking about it, like ignoring the trade aspect of it,
Yes,
it's also could just be simple frustration. Because so many of his
very good
teammates
point.
that he thought he was going to be playing with the entire year haven't been playing consistently. And if you have Devin, Trace, Jeremy out there 100% of the time, Romeo, Jay Rich, fully healthy, then some of those small details that he's been ignoring aren't seen because they're being covered by those guys because they have more talent, especially defensively. You know what I mean? And I'm sure, I know losing was to be expected this year, but as a competitor, I'm sure it has to really just be pissing him off that he's a vet, he's a solid player, and he's being asked to do so much already. And then now he's having to cover up for guys' mistakes defensively, and he's losing the ball. And the Raptors seem to be
It's
really,
much definitely that. Like
yeah,
I'm realizing we've had this conversation before where I've been like, I feel like he knows, but it's definitely more what you're talking about. Maybe that other does play a little bit of a factor into it,
it could.
but what you're talking about right now, I think is definitely the major thing because when I saw that, like that closeout I was talking about, the look,
Yeah.
like you could see his face and the look on his face was like, oh my God, nobody went and covered this. Like there's a wide open shooter right behind me right now. Like, and
Mhm.
that ties into exactly what you're talking about.
I see that happen so much with poor Jakob. Like a backdoor, like he'll come help on like a weak side baseline drive, and then there's easy dump off pass, and nobody picked up his guy, and he just like he drops his head like this, and he looks at whoever it was, like, come on, man,
Yeah.
like I'm trying to help you and you can't help me. I'm sure it's frustrating. I see it with Jay Rich too. Jay Rich makes
And
the same face.
that there was actually a play that happened between Jay Rich and Jakob
Yeah, they
where
doubled the same guy.
and Jakob really should have been on the roller to the rim because it gave up a wide open dunk,
Yeah.
I believe, to Chris Boucher.
Yes.
So
Yeah. So it happens to the best of us.
yeah, but notice the two guys we're talking about in that Jay Rich and
Yeah.
Jakob. Oh man, I love them so much, Ethan. I really like have grown fond of both of them, but we may be in the weaning hours. This may be the last post game that they're Spurs because there's been a lot of more smoke coming out, specifically
Hmm.
what the Spurs are asking for. If y'all go over to the SSPN Twitter at SSPN on YT, I made a post a couple days ago. You scroll down just a little bit, you'll see Sam Amako's intel on trades, and basically the Spurs are asking for second round picks for Doug and Jay Rich, along with expiring contracts. Um, and then with Jakob, there's still the two first rounders thing. But just
It's
with
probably
his,
not going to
I don't
happen.
think that's going to happen either. Yeah, and I think that they're going to be okay with that. Like, I think they're still going to make a move because of the declined extension. And just like the flip side of what we were just talking about earlier is the Spurs see that.
Yeah.
Like, and for as much of like, I'm gonna give a weird example here, but for all of the DeJounte talk, like that we've seen recently, and a lot of like bad mouthing, you could say, like the one thing DeJounte has stayed consistent in throughout that entire thing is that Pop wanted him to go somewhere. Like that Pop didn't want him to waste his years of his prime with this team right
Yeah.
now. And I'm sure the sentiment is the same with Jakob, who's turned 27 this year, is about to get probably the biggest contract of his life for his prime. They see what he's going through, and I'm sure they understand his frustration, which is why I think that they'll definitely, and also you just don't want to lose him for nothing. They'll settle and find some deal for him, I feel like, within the next, I guess, less than 24 hours.
It has to be before 3 o'clock tomorrow. 3 p.m. is the deadline. I'm getting a little worried, Jude, because the Lakers and the Nets, at
Right.
least in my eyes, were the two teams that actually had validity. Like there was like actual rumors
Big
with like
trades
player
today,
names.
if anybody doesn't know. Sorry, I don't mean to cut
No,
you
you're
off, but
good. You're
just to
good.
let everybody, if you haven't heard yet, the Lakers just brought in Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt, and
Mhm.
D'Angelo Russell in a 3-team trade with the Jazz and the Timberwolves. Nikhil Alexander-Walker, I don't know what team he was on, but he's going to the Timberwolves. And then Mike Conley, or no, I think Nikhil Alexander-Walker, I don't know. He's on one of those 3 teams and
Mm.
got traded to one of those 3 teams. But Mike Conley went to the Timberwolves. Anyways.
Yes. So what I was just trying to say was that
Oh,
the
what is
two the
that?
two teams I felt had a lot of like legit validity to them. The rumors was the Nets and the Lakers because they actually had names associated with the rumors. It was like the Russell Westbrook contract would be a salary dump to the Spurs, or the Nets are looking to acquire Jakob so that they can
Or
solidify
Jay
their
Rich. I
their
saw
front
that
court.
too.
Yes, so they need some extra scoring off the bench and 3-and-D guys.
Well, I guess
So
with Cam Thomas, shoot.
now you got Cam Thomas, but a nice 3-and-D guy would also
Right.
help. They're kind of
Right.
building a 3-and-D like team around Cam
And
Thomas
we
and KD.
forget Jay Rich is 6'6". He can play the 3 too.
Exactly. So, but with those two teams kind of, I don't know if they're off the table, but it's looking more and more like they are. The Raptors are another team that we hear about, but are
Celtics also.
the Celtics. I'm getting nervous that it's a little less likely that he gets moved, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like as we
It would
come
just
down the,
suck to lose him for nothing. I
it would.
understand where you're coming from right now, because it feels like the smoke is not as spicy or as hot as it was earlier. But I don't know, with the way the Raptors were talking on that broadcast, dude. Like
Yeah,
it sounded
that's
like
true.
they were gonna make like a bunch of different moves. So maybe that's for
Mm.
Jakob. I mean, but they were literally previewing, like they showed him on the screen in the pregame, and they were like, "This is somebody the Raptors could trade for, guys." I was like, "Dude, why don't we just do this after the game and leave him there?"
Mm.
Like,
That was a rumor I saw. They were like, "Are
like,
they there to like move him after the game so he doesn't have to like travel
like,
afterwards?"
can we just leave him there? Like, if we're gonna move him, like, don't fly him back to San Antonio. I mean, I guess he's gonna get some stuff, but like, can't we like? Is there anything we can do to make this process easier for him if he's going to the Raptors? Like, if he's going to the Raptors, he shouldn't leave Toronto tonight. What do we think?
I
Like,
agree.
I
Might as well
agree
just leave
too.
him there.
Like, send us we'll figure it out. He'll figure it out. It's the NBA. They've got
Yeah.
money. They've got resources. We'll get his stuff to him. He shouldn't have to fly back to San Antonio just to go to a different country again.
Mm,
Like that's another thing.
for
Um,
sure.
Going back to the Sam Amico article I was talking about, the Cavaliers and Lakers have been linked to both Richardson and McDermott. I think the Lakers are going to be out of
Mm.
there, especially getting Malik Beasley. But so maybe the Cavs want to pick up Jay
Ooh,
Rich or Doug. That's
is
what it's.
Kevin? Sorry to interrupt you, but is
You're good.
Kevin Love on an expiring deal? Because I saw that he's out of the rotation, and that could be a salary dump.
I feel like that would also be like, I feel like Kevin Love, like this version of Kevin Love, like he would come to the Spurs.
He would.
Like,
I
it
love Kevin Love.
it would be so funny if we get this version of Kevin Love. I don't. It's like I don't know.
I wouldn't give up Jakob for
Kevin
unless
Love
they
and
had
Zach
multiple.
Collins front court.
Ooh, especially what if we kept Doug in that trade? We have the
Oh my
Doug, Kevin
gosh,
Love. We got the white
Zach.
trio,
Oh my God, the big three.
the big
Oh
three.
Lord. Oh my gosh. Okay. Some other stuff. Also, they said that basically Jay Rich Doug are available, but Isaiah Roby is apparently available as well.
Hmm.
I wouldn't be. I doubt we find anything for him. We probably just keep him
Oh,
on his minimum deal. What were you gonna say?
we forgot to bring up. We have apparently Deadman is now on our team, even
Right.
though he's not with us.
Oh, I was gonna get to that. Well, he was out tonight, And so the rumor is right now, I guess it ended bad last time when he was here. And I kind of remember a little bit of like stuff that I heard, but I didn't think that it was like anything that would like prevent him from coming back. But
I didn't know it ended badly. I knew he wasn't with
Don
the
Harris
team.
was tweeting about that. They were like, I'll be, but a bunch of people, like there were some people were coming like, he's a bad guy. Like he won't play here. There were some people saying that, but it was also like, I saw some other just reporter people that were like, I doubt he plays. But the thing is, we have to wait until after the deadline to like buy him out, I guess. But he was listed as out tonight, and I don't think he's injured. And he wasn't on the sideline either. So probably not going to be a part of the team.
No, probably not. I thought he was a pickup to literally just add to a trade to make money work or something.
It feels like a preemptive move, and we got a free second-round pick out of it.
Yeah, we literally just bought a second-round pick.
Yeah.
Because we gave up cash consideration.
Right.
We just paid for a second-round pick.
And he had just, like, fought with Spoelstra.
Yeah, so he was on his way out anyway.
So, yeah. And I guess when you factor that in, that's probably, once again, means he's not going to play for the Spurs. Because if he's just fighting with Spoelstra, I doubt Pop's like, I want him in my locker room. You know what I mean? I don't know. But this season, it's like, but at first when I saw it, I was thinking it was like, oh, we're trading Jakob. He's going to be the new backup center. That's what I thought. So, but it's weird that he's out because I don't think he's injured. But it also might just be travel and stuff like that too.
Could be.
I don't know. We'll figure out by 2:00 tomorrow. So we could sit here and speculate all we want, but really, we'll find out in the near future. Maybe we'll wake up to something that happens tonight. I don't know.
Please, I would welcome that.
Right. But Dwayne Dedmon, potentially a Spur?
Welcome home, King.
Welcome home, I think. That's kind of where we're at right now.
Cleveland.
The thing is, I wouldn't even be mad. Like, I know there's like, yeah,
I like Dwayne Dedmon.
Whatever. Like, yeah, when he was here the last time, and it's not even, obviously he's older and a different player, but like the point is, for this season, that's a perfect placeholder backup center.
Yeah, it's better than Gorky.
For the second half of the year. Right, exactly. Rip Gorky, by the way. 10-day contract, only got one of them. I was expecting those to just keep rolling for the end of the year, but...
My man's basically homeless right now.
Right.
Rip.
Wait. He is, though.
No, he's got a home. He's just jobless.
Yeah.
He's out there looking for his,
He's looking for his new basketball home.
Yeah, there we go. That's what I was going to say.
Well, you want to check in on the G League Ignite Austin Spurs game?
Sure, let's do that real quick.
Okay, actually, this is good news. They were getting kind of blown out at the end of, they really just got blown out in the first quarter. But now it is a 2-point game, Ethan, with 5 minutes left, 91-89. Dom Barlow just got a rebound. I'm watching the game cast because I just had it pulled up. But let me give you guys a little bit of a box score. It's the same thing. It's Leonard Miller, 9 for 11, 2 for 2 from 3 with 20 and 9. And then it's Dominic Barlow with 22 and 6 and 8 for 14 with a assist, 2 blocks, and 2 steals. So it's Dom Barlow versus Leonard Miller tonight, which, I mean, honestly, those are just 2 former top high school prospects dueling it out right now. Like,
I'm with it.
It's honestly like super typical because it's, I mean, or I say super typical.
That's what the G League has become.
What did I mean? Right, a little bit, but
former high school dominant players.
That's what I'm saying. Like exactly, like high school prospects that decided not to go to college. They're dueling right now, like because he went to OTE, and then homeboy Leonard Miller. I want to say he might have actually played a year like after high school on the Canada's. It might have just worked out because it was FIBA, the FIBA year for Canada, but it said he was on like a Canada team. So like they're kind of like very similar, both 19 years old, both bigs, both played a year out of college or out of high school, but not at college, and then are now in the G League. So good to see that. I mean, excellent. And now it's 91-91. So shout out to the Austin Spurs for no Scoot Henderson or City Sissoko tonight, but still some talent on this team. Also, Mojave King is another guard. He hasn't had a great game tonight, but he played in the NBL for a year, and before that was kind of projected to be a first-round pick. So yeah, shout out to the Austin Spurs making a comeback win. Let me read you these. This is a crazy quarter-by-quarter box score. So I'll finish off with this, and we'll see how this ends. Looks like a timeout is here. 3:28 left, 91-91. G League Ignite wins the first quarter 32-20. The second quarter is 27-26. G League Ignite wins. So Austin does a little better. Then in the third quarter, G League Ignite, still a close quarter, 25-21, but pulls away. And then in the fourth quarter so far, it's been a 24-7 run by Austin to tie it up, and led by Dom Barlow. So shout out to the guy.
The future.
Yes. The much better third string power forward next season. Maybe even second string. Who knows?
Excellent. Hell yeah.
I don't actually. Well, let's see. We'll have Sohan, and then it just depends on KBD. If we bring KBD back, he might just split minutes with KBD.
KBD's the new Matt Bonner. He's just going to stay with us forever.
I wouldn't be mad at it.
I love KBD.
Yeah. That would actually, honestly, if we want to bring Dom Barlow up and make him a part of our rotation moving forward, bringing KBD back on a small contract would actually be a pretty good idea, because then it's like, if it's not working well for Dom, you can just throw KBD in there. He already knows everything. He does.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I'm with that for sure.
But it depends if KBD's down for that. I feel like he would be, though.
I think so.
Yeah.
What else is he gonna do?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think anybody else is gonna pick him up.
I think he likes San Antonio too. So
me too. Any other thoughts on tonight's game, the trade deadline? Anything before we go, Ethan?
It's rough, but stick in there, folks. I'll be gone for a little while. I don't know if Jude's planning on doing anything solo, but I'll be on vacation until next Wednesday, so you won't be hearing my sweet, pleasant voice.
We're all sad.
I know, everyone's very upset.
But can you do something tomorrow night? Were we going to do some trade deadline stuff tomorrow? Or
if something breaks, for sure. If we actually make a move.
I was going to say, even if we did, yeah, I guess if we don't, there's really not much to talk about.
Get on here talking about how upset we are.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to make a move.
Well, not even, I wouldn't be upset. I would just kind of more like analyze, like, okay, I guess none of, but that would just be everything we have right now. So.
Yeah, where are we going from here?
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah.
I guess we're losing Jakob for nothing. That would be the whole episode.
We give Jakob the max.
If there is a move, obviously I know you got work, but if there is a move, you want to go live tomorrow?
Yeah,
we can do it in the evening. We'll set up a time, so y'all just stay tuned. This is a good segue to this. If y'all want to follow us on Twitter to stay updated with the show, go ahead and do that at SSPN on YT. We'll make all the announcements. We live stream on there as well, at Jude McLaren, at Ethan_Quintero. Sometimes we post stuff there too. So you can stay tuned by staying tuned to that. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's episode. I'm sorry I couldn't see the comments today, but we appreciate you guys just as much, just as always. Hopefully next time I can see that. But anyways, the next time we see y'all, there'll either be a move or it'll be next week. We appreciate y'all. We'll catch y'all in the next one.